For almost 2 years, we have been wondering about the whereabouts of a true Port Charles legend. I am talking, of course, about Scott Baldwin. After his extended absence, it felt like the writers might have just quietly retired him off screen. But then, a massive piece of unconfirmed information dropped right into our laps. Serena Baldwin unexpectedly returned to town, stepping right into the chaotic corporate war at Deception. And what did she do almost immediately? She dropped a massive update on her father. According to Serena, Scott is currently living his best life down in Key West, kayaking, soaking up the sun, and enjoying a peaceful, drama-free existence. Just hearing that detail was enough to make longtime viewers, and certainly Lucy Coe, breathe a massive sigh of relief. We finally have confirmation that Scott is safe and healthy. But if you ask me, there may be more going on here. In the soap world, writers rarely name drop a legacy character and give a specific location just to say they are doing fine. Usually, it is a breadcrumb. It is a deliberate setup for a much larger return. The insider buzz is that this Key West mention is the foundation for a massive emotional comeback storyline for Scott Baldwin. Everyone assumes that the current canvas is exactly what it appears to be. Most viewers believe that Serena is simply back in town for a brief stint to act as Lucy Coe's heavy hitter in the brutal Deception power struggle against Tracy and Brooklyn Quartermain. The obvious explanation seems to be that Lucy was desperate. She needed someone she could trust implicitly, and her adopted daughter answered the call. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, we have the mysterious arrival of the new business executive Hudson. Most viewers assume Hudson is just another corporate shark or a dangerous figure tied to Ethan Lovett's shady past, especially since Ethan immediately packed his bags and fled the moment Hudson arrived. Everyone is looking at these two storylines, Serena's corporate rescue mission and Hudson's ominous arrival, as completely separate events. People think Scott is just going to stay off screen in Florida while Serena handles a few boardroom brawls before heading back home. But what if we're looking at this the wrong way? What if that wasn't the real reason Serena came back? And what if Hudson isn't just looking for Ethan? I keep wondering whether these two isolated events are actually the exact same storyline, hiding in plain sight. Let's build an alternative story, one that is currently floating around the behind-the-scenes rumor mill. Serena has been away from Port Charles for nearly 2 decades. That is an incredibly long time, more than enough time to build a completely new life, fall in love, get married, and start a family. What if Hudson is actually Serena's husband? I know it sounds wild at first, but think about it. If Hudson is the man who has been standing by Serena's side all these years, his sudden arrival in Port Charles right after she gets here takes on a completely different, much more intimate meaning. And let's take it a step further. What if Serena and Hudson have a child together? A little boy or a little girl? They have been living a beautiful, happy life down in Key West, which just so happens to be the exact same place Scott Baldwin is currently residing. This would perfectly explain why Scott is so content and at peace. He isn't just randomly kayaking alone in retirement. He is living with his daughter, his son-in-law, and he is spending every single day doting on his grandchild. If this insider buzz holds any weight, it changes the entire dynamic of the current Port Charles landscape. We are no longer just looking at a corporate battle. We are looking at a fractured family trying to find its way back together. This leads us to a few very distinct, unconfirmed possibilities for how this might play out on screen. Possibility number 1 is the heartwarming reunion theory. In this scenario, Serena only came to Port Charles because Lucy begged her for help. It was supposed to be a quick trip, a temporary favor to save Deception. Hudson, being the devoted husband, stayed behind in Key West to work, while Grandpa Scott eagerly volunteered to babysit their child. But as the Deception war drags on, Hudson realizes he simply cannot stand being away from his wife. He travels to Port Charles to be with Serena, leaving Scott alone with the kid. Eventually, Scott decides he misses the action and his daughter, and decides to bring his grandchild up to Port Charles for a surprise visit. Imagine the emotional weight of that scene. A taxi pulls up to the Metro Court. The door opens and Scott Baldwin steps out, holding the tiny hand of a young child. Serena spots them across the plaza, drops her briefcase, and runs into her father's arms, before dropping to her knees to embrace the child she has desperately missed. Hudson walks up right behind them, and the entire Baldwin family is reunited right there in the center of town. It would be a massive, tear-jerking moment that reintroduces Scott not just as a lawyer, but as a fiercely protective grandfather. But another theory is far more intense. Possibility number 2 suggests that the Key West life was actually a carefully constructed lie. What if Hudson isn't just a loving husband, but a man running from a very dangerous past? We know Ethan Lovett fled Port Charles the second Hudson arrived. What if Ethan stumbled upon Hudson's true identity while passing through Florida? In this scenario, Hudson's arrival in Port Charles isn't out of love. It is a desperate attempt to silence Ethan before Ethan can tell Ava Jerome or Sonny Corinthos the truth. Serena might be completely in the dark, thinking she is just in town to help Lucy, while her husband is actually hunting a man down. This means Scott Baldwin is currently sitting in Key West, completely unaware that he is guarding the child of a highly dangerous man. When Scott inevitably finds out that trouble is brewing, he won't just casually visit Port Charles. He will flee Key West in the dead of night, bringing his grandchild to the only place he knows he can find allies, setting up a massive confrontation between Scott and his own son-in-law. Possibility number 3 shifts the perspective even further. What if someone planned this entire separation? What if Tracy Quartermaine, knowing that Lucy Coe would inevitably call Serena for help, actually orchestrated Hudson's arrival in Port Charles to distract Serena? Tracy is ruthless. If she found out that Serena was married to a powerful businessman named Hudson, Tracy might have manufactured a crisis that required Hudson's immediate attention in New York or Port Charles, effectively pulling Serena's support system away from her. In this scenario, Scott's eventual return with the grandchild wouldn't just be a family reunion. It would be Scott Baldwin marching into the deception offices, grandchild in tow, ready to absolutely destroy Tracy Quartermaine in court for daring to mess with his daughter's marriage. But as fascinating as those scenarios are, there is one behind-the-scenes possibility that is gaining traction, and it is easily the most dangerous theory of them all. What if we are looking at Hudson's motives completely backward? What if Hudson didn't marry Serena out of love? What if Hudson is actually a deep cover operative for the WSB, working directly under someone like Z, or perhaps even tied to the remnants of Jen Sidwell's network? In this haunting scenario, Hudson targeted Serena years ago specifically because of her connection to the Baldwin and Spencer legacy. The child they share isn't just a symbol of love. It is a genetic bargaining chip. Scott's peaceful life in Key West wasn't a retirement. It was a desperate attempt to keep his daughter and grandchild off the grid. Hudson's arrival in Port Charles means the cover is blown. If this is true, Scott Baldwin isn't going to return for a happy family hug. He is going to return to Port Charles, armed, desperate, and willing to do whatever it takes to permanently eliminate Hudson to protect his grandchild. This would transform Scott from a comedic lawyer into a lethal, tragic figure, willing to sacrifice his own freedom and perhaps his own life to ensure his family survives. It is a storyline that would shake the very foundation of the show. So, where does that leave us? As of right now, the network is keeping everything tightly under wraps. There are no official confirmations. The studio has not verified if Hudson has ever even met Serena, let alone married her. They haven't confirmed if a child exists or if Scott Baldwin is truly packing his bags to leave Key West. Everything we are hearing is pure, unadulterated insider speculation. But something about this feels hidden. The timing of Serena's return, the specific mention of Key West, Hudson's mysterious arrival, and Ethan's sudden panic, it all aligns too perfectly to just be a coincidence. If you ask me, the writers are quietly setting the stage for a massive Baldwin family explosion. We might be weeks away from seeing Scott Baldwin walk back onto our screens, holding the hand of a child we never knew existed. Or we might be looking at a completely different, far more sinister plot. Could Serena and Hudson actually be married? Is Scott about to step into the role of the ultimate protective grandfather? Or is this all just an elaborate misdirection before General Hospital reveals a secret that is even larger and more devastating? I keep wondering how Lucy Coe will react when the dust finally settles. We will have to keep our eyes glued to the screen because whatever is coming, it feels like it is going to change Port Charles forever. I would love to know what you guys think. Which of these theories are you leaning towards? Drop your thoughts, and let's keep the speculation going.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.